a couple of tree visualization options, okay? My first sentence is, there are so many tools, right? There are many software packages and web tools that are designed for displaying phylogenetic tools, for phylogenetic trees, sorry. Okay? There are many. They have different features and suitability. Okay? The question that you need to ask yourself is, what do you want to communicate? Do you want a tool that gives you interactivity, which means you can play around with the tree? Okay? And what are the output options? For example, maybe you just need to visualize the tree and that's it. Okay? Or maybe you want to produce the tree in PDF so that you can put it in a publication. Okay? So you need to think about the tool that you want to use. And you also have to think about, like, there are different ways of interacting with the tool. So there are online software, which means you don't have to install it. Then there's some that is a desktop software. For example, you install Phylogeny, right? Then there are libraries. So, which means, for example, how many have used Python before? So you just use a Python library to, for example, how many have used ETE toolkit? ETE toolkit. Okay. So there are libraries that you can use within other tools to visualize trees. Okay. What is important is ease of use. Which one is easy for you to use? Okay. Compute resources. There are some that needs a lot of memory. There are some that require less memory. Okay. Again, you look at your own situation. 3, also important is the size of the tree. Some tools, once you start having too many tapes, they'll just probably crash. Okay? So you have to think about these kinds of things. So I want to give you a couple of examples that you can use. Number 1 is ITOL. Okay? So I'll just go through each of them quickly. I'll just open a new browser here.
Le premier, c'est Python. Interactive Tree.
So most of these, I think, should have, like, I don't know. ITOL has an installable version or not? Or it's just web-based? Okay.
But I think you need to have an account
To download.
like even with the installable one.
Okay.
You need an account. Have created an account.
Okay, so we have ITOL. I've put the link onto your document. So what I'm going to do is I'll just upload a tree from here. So I'm just going to upload the tree. It asks me for a tree name if I want. I don't bother with that. Remember that a tree file is text-based file. So, which means you can just copy and paste the information here. Okay? But I'm just going to upload the file. So let's see, if we give it, I want to try a Newig file. Or let's try Nexus. Let's see what will happen. Upload. It worked. Okay? So, but the basic file that will never fail on any tool is an Newig. Okay? All right. So we have our tree, and you can see here that similar to what we had on Fig Tree, there are different ways of playing around with different visualization options. So I can try, for example, do a circular tree, rectangular, or even unrooted. Where's the view option? So on the left here, I think if I minimize, oops.
James, I put the GitHub link from Stephen in the doc.
Okay. So you can play around with different formats. Okay. The other thing I think people like about ITOL is you can actually also use it to root the tree. I'm trying to find where that option was. Yeah? Oh, so for example, if I wanted to root on this, tree structure, reroute the tree here. Okay, so it's able to do that. Okay. Now, you can also add metadata. This is my personal bias. I find the metadata format for ITOL quite complicated. So it's not intuitive, it's not easy to use because it has to have a very specific structure. For most tree visualization, you just need a TXT file or a CSV file. Okay? So actually, because you don't have so but you can create, let me create a fake metadata here. Arnold, what is that name of the first column that Fig Tree likes? For the, like when you're using a metadata file, an annotation file. It's not taxon, but anyway.
Not sharing with it.
Hmm?
Actually, it's tax.
Okay.
Documentation is nice. It's well documented.
Okie dokes. What else can we add? Any fake metadata we can add? Any suggestions?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Host.
Hmm?
Host. Egg group.
I mean, I'm just adding fake data, so it doesn't matter. We are just adding stuff. Oh, this is what I can do. These are 22. I'll tell ChatGPT. Let me leave it. Say it like something like what, host? What other thing can you put?
The host.
Rat. We use rats. Okay, so we have a metadata file. If the information, whether it doesn't align, that's not a big problem. So I told you have to use a specific format for the metadata. Stephen, your neighbor is praying for us. Amen. Hallelujah. Thank you. Okay. So ITOL can produce trees like this with metadata. Okay, just to show you some of the things that are possible with ITOL. How many have heard about Fandango? Good. So Fandango is another example you could use. So this is so Fandango, you can just drag drop your tree. So I'm just going to drag drop my Newick. And you can see the tree is dropped there. And it will always tell you like a phylogeny has been loaded, but without recombination and genome or metadata. So this was mostly used to visualize bacterial trees. And for the metadata, I have a metadata file. It's .txt, right? I'll try and drop it here. What did it tell me? Error. Unknown file extension. Okay? You remember when I said that tree visualization tools are very specific about their input. So Fandango only accepts CSV. So what I'll do is I'll go back to my metadata file. I'll say save as, and I'll look for the option CSV. And I'll save this here. Then I'll go back to my tree here, say okay, and then now I should have the CSV file, and I'll drag and drop it, and you can see the metadata as should have. Okay, so here you can play around with the parameters like the visualization here. I can move, the metadata from the tree like that. Okay, the tree I can zoom out a bit. This should be. So whenever you scroll your mouse, you should be able to zoom in or zoom out the tree. And you see, you can be able to visualize the metadata like the country goes with the tip. Okay? So in our fake data, we remember these two countries, we assigned them DRC, right? And these other countries, we assigned them USA, and these other ones Burundi. Okay? And I think you had different settings here that you can play around with. And I don't think that Fandango can do rerouting, or unless I'm forgetting. I don't think that's possible here. So this is mostly for visualization and the metadata. Okay? Good. So that is something else that you can get with Fandango. So I'm just also showing you examples from elsewhere. The third one is auspice. Okay? Most of you have seen this auspice from the same guys who've developed NextTrain. So then I'll just drop it into this document here. Steve, you're doing a very good job. Thank you. All right, so we have auspice. Now, let's try and give it a, is it not remembering? Let's try an awake, okay? It can take an awake file, which is awesome, right? It typically goes very well with metadata, okay? So let's give it a metadata file. Let's give it the CSV. Let's try the CSV. It has added some metadata. Now if I come color by, you can see now we have options. Okay? So we can say color by country. Now the tips are colored by country. Yeah. You can also color by hosts and color by net. And I don't know why it's doing that, but I think we only have two options here, country and host. Okay? So that's something that's possible. Let me go back to auspice. I guess you can also select. I think we had a JSON option. Remember the JSON that had the tree and the metadata? What happened? Okay, that does not appear to work pretty well. Okay. Okay, so I guess the JSON it expects is one that has gone through the auspice analysis. So maybe it's not recognized that, okay? All right, so let me just load back the generic file that we had and the associated metadata. Okay, so we've done that. I'll go back to my slide set here. And you can see in this visualization for auspice, if you did run there's an auspice, there's an auger workflow. How many have come across the auger workflow? So if you've run the auger workflow, and typically you give it metadata, for example, the country, it's able to get the geographic coordinates, and you're able to, it gives you a JSON file that will have both the tree, the metadata, the geography, and then you can have a nice plot like this one. Okay? I don't know whether this is the fourth or the fifth. There's philo.io. Okay? I'm just showing you the different options. Okay? So philo.io, the reason I like it is the ability to compare trees roughly, because they are much more statistically rigorous methods for comparing trees, using things like RMSD. But in this case, we are not going to bother about that. So we have philo.io. Again, here you can just upload your tree. So here I have the tree that we generated. Okay, we have an error. Do you see what happened? So we do know that our tree, it only accepts txt, nh, nhk, newig, tray, and tree. But the file that I've given it has the extension tree file, right? So what about if we use the newig one? Again, remembering that, you know, some of these tools will be highly specific to specific inputs. This one did not have a problem, so I click render, and the tree has been rendered. Okay? Now, I did something. You remember we had, Okay, just before that, let me just ensure that okay. You remember when we were talking about models? Okay? We said you could force IQ-TREE to use a specific model, or you could have IQ-TREE pick the best model and then use that best model to infer the tree, correct? So I did run my tree with a different model. I want to see if that tree is different from the one that IQ-TREE picked as the best model. So here, on the left panel, I'll upload the tree where we used the best model from IQ-TREE. And on the right, I'm going to pick a tree that I generated using the model GTR plus I plus G. Then I tell it to render. So you can see we have the two trees here, left and right. What do you guys think? Do they look similar, or do you think that there are any differences? So this one, IQ-TREE, picked the best model. This one, I gave it my own model, GTR plus I plus G. What do you think about the topology? Do they look similar, or do you think there are any differences? Any thoughts?
Similar.
They are quite similar, right? Somebody is saying there are some differences. Where? Which differences can you see? So, this one?
So you see from the other one, this longer one is a little bit in some I see that longer one.
This one?
The other some
So, if we look at the most recent common ancestor for the one that includes, so you could say that, these two sequences share a most recent common ancestor on this tree with this 55828, right? And here, if we look at this node, where's 55828? If we look at now probably this node, well, they do share most recent common ancestor, but not the immediate one, right? So there is a bit of a difference there, right? Of course, if this tree has a bootstrap, then we need to check if, because sometimes if you have a low bootstrap value, then really it doesn't matter. There can be a bit of a shift, okay? So this is why I like Philo.io, because it can give you some, like if you want to just have that quick overview, if there are any differences between your tree topologies. It seems to be calculating something. Normally it can show you any differences on this scale. I'll just leave it open to see if it will get some output. Okay. We've looked at fig tree, which you've installed, right? So with your fig tree as well, you can just open fig tree, upload the sequence, and visualize it. There is also ggtree. So those, how many are familiar with R? R? Okay. So for those who use R, I love R. You can also similarly run an R script. I think I should have, I don't know if I still have that. So, So here, let's see. Okay, so obviously we are not going to run this, but this is to highlight the fact that you could read in a tree file and also present it. So this script actually is the same script that I used to. No, this is not my tree, but I think I've ever produced a tree like that. So you can use ggtree to produce a tree like that, also with associated metadata. Okay? All right, there is micro-react. How many have ever used micro-react? This is the cookbook. So micro-react, you can also come here to the uploads, supported files. You have different supported files here. You can drag, drop, or also just upload. Let's pick this dynamic file. That's the file, the tree is Newick, and we're going to continue. So we have our tree there, and we can add this one, accept also CSV file. So I don't know whether, do you remember we could drag and drop? Okay.
It's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Okie dokes. Oh. Where? Oh, concurrently. Hmm? Hmm? Do you have to upload them together? Okay. Okay, good. All right. It's 5 o'clock, so you can see with micro-react you have a tree there, and we also have metadata. It also has a timeline here showing you the dates. You can, I think here you should be able to.
Labels, metadata blocks, select action, country,
Okay. All right. So, as we finish, I think that's the end. So we can talk a bit more tomorrow about how to visualize tree with metadata and some of the misconceptions you need to think about. Okay? Any last minute questions before we close? I know it's a lot, but it's to open up the availability of different tools and how you can use them. And thank you very much. All right, and thank you.